any Harrises that night. It was raining harder than ever. Beastly stuff it was. Half rain and half sleet, and blowing a gale as well. They'd probably run for shelter somewhere. In the meantime, I was on my own and very hungry. Next move, obviously dinner. So I scavenged. No, that's not the word. Foraged in the larder, and began very well with cold beef and cold beer. Rather chilly for such a night, so a hot second course seemed indicated. What about Welsh rarebit? I chopped up some cheese and butter into the frying pan, poured some beer over it, and I think a little milk, and put it on the fire. Well, whether it wasn't the right kind of cheese or the quantities were wrong, I don't know. But when I tried to pour the result onto a piece of toast, it wouldn't pour. In fact, it wasn't a fluid at all. It was more like a slab of crepe rubber. I managed to detach it from the frying pan with a hot knife and tried wrapping it round the toast, but it kept springing undone. So Jock had it. It bothered him a bit too. Next, I thought of sardines on toast, the toast being already available, so to speak. So I put 3 on it and held it over the fire. 1 rolled off, and then there were 2. The survivors were eatable, just. When I'd finished dinner, it was nearly 9 o'clock, and I settled down once more in front of the fire, with dog and cat as before. There was really nothing else to do, and again, I ought to blush to say, fell asleep. At 9:30, a funny sort of tapping noise woke me up. Most peculiar noise. It sounded as if someone was prodding at the door and scraping it with a stick. I didn't take much notice at first. You know what it is when you are half asleep. I put it down to a bit of woodwork in the porch having broken loose and being blown about by the gale. But Jock started making a fuss and sniffing under the door, so there evidently was someone. I got up and called out, "Who's there?" The door was bolted, because it had kept on blowing open. There was no answer, but I thought I could hear a sort of panting noise. Then it dawned on me, of course, an escaped convict. We were only quite a few miles from Princetown, and the Harrises had gone off without telling me what they usually did in such cases. Ought I to offer him a bed and breakfast, or what? Anyway, I got bored with shouting, "Who's there?" and getting no answer, so I drew the bolt. In came the door with a gust of wind, and there, filling up the porch, was an enormous great beast with 2 staring eyes and a pair of horns, and I said, "Swelp me," and before I realised that it was only Constance, she'd barged right in. There she stood in the middle of the floor, dripping wet, of course, and looking very sheepish, at least as sheepish as a cow can look, me wondering how she'd got out, and how on earth she was to be got back again. Mind you, I think cows are perfectly ripping beasts, and I'm devoted to them. But they are a nuisance in a small room. I went up to her and said, "Now then, Connie McGall, out you go." And she just stared. So I put an arm round her neck and urged her doorwards, but she wouldn't budge. Then I took her by the horns and tried to wheel her like a bicycle. But that was another bad guess, because she backed. She backed right across the room and sat down on Mrs. Harris's work-basket. Well, whether she found a needle or what, I don't know, but she said, "Moo," and got up instantly. Then I got hold of her tail with my left hand and went forward with it and tried pulling her along that way, with my right hand on the handlebar, so to speak. But that wouldn't work either, and I daren't pull too hard in case her tail came right out. She went sideways all right. In fact, we went round and round the room sideways for about 5 minutes, but no luck. We nearly got out once, but just at the cruciological moment, she went and shoved a horn through a tall canvas screen there was, and brought it down on the top of us. End of round 1, with Connie easily leading on points. All this time, Jock was barking the place down, and being little or no sort of use. However, when I left off for a breather, he tackled her on his own account.